Hello, everybody. It's me, Jeff, and welcome to the Two Half Squats, the one and only podcast dedicated 100% to the greatest game in the world, and that is
Advanced Squad Leader.
I am joined in the broadcast foxhole. I am not joined in the broadcast foxhole. Just like over the space-time continuum, I am joined by the miracle of technology by Mr. Rich Spilky, who is, he needs no introduction. Rich, you don't need an introduction. Is that good or bad?
I'm not sure. It depends upon the situation, but I'll take it for what it's worth at this point. I'm joining you electronically in the foxhole, and
yeah,
I recognize the background behind you because I have joined you there in the past.
Yes, it's been a while, but it has been done, and hopefully it will happen again in the not too distant future. I'm going to switch out. I'm wearing a helmet, by the way, because Rich and I are going to get into some deep subjects tonight, and I didn't want to bump my head. I actually was looking for a propeller hat because, as usual, when Rich joins us, we talk about a lot of technical squad leader stuff, and I need my propeller hat, but I couldn't find it.
Well, I think you'll be able to handle it without that, Jeff, although it might be a little harder for you.
Well, we'll see.
I want to comment while you're switching headgear there that I see in the upper right-hand corner above you 6 of my favorite books that I must comment on, the 6 volumes that Winston Churchill wrote post-World War II, but about World War II, the whole thing of, how it started and how it ended. You see those 6 volumes up there? And I have read all 6 of those books. I have those same books in my house. And I'm wearing a Winston Churchill shirt. You can kind of sort of see it. It says never surrender. You can see the never part.
Yeah, stand up.
On the video. Let me stand up and show it. I got to show it off. Never, there's Winston, surrender.
Yeah, nice.
But those books are terrific. If you guys have not read those books, this is not a Spine and Sprocket podcast, so I'm sorry to digress. But those are some of the greatest books I've ever read. They're absolutely terrific. And they really show what, Winston Churchill obviously himself was thinking and what the government was thinking. And obviously it's all his perspective. He's the author. But it really is pretty enthralling to me. I loved every minute of those books.
They're on my list, but I have a very large list. Hopefully I'll get to them someday because I did start one of them and I really liked his writing, and I like that they're not so dense. He's got a very kind of a conversational way of writing, I think, that's actually pretty easy to read.
Well, I find it entertaining. I used to think way back when I was a teenager, I think the title of the second book is called Their Finest Hour.
Yeah.
And I used to think, I'm not sure if you have them in the right order, but I think the second volume is Their Finest Hour. Is that correct?
Yes.
The Gathering Storm is first.
Right.
As I recall. But I used to think, when I was like 15 years old, give or take, that was about, their finest hour was the Germans' finest hour. It was their finest hour. Their the high point of the war for the Germans when they had taken over most or almost all of Europe. They were, had known nothing but victory. And so I thought it meant, well, it was their finest hour. And if you read the book, you will soon realize, or maybe you won't realize until you get to near the end, but it's really about the British Empire's finest hour, when they were at the peak of losing and alone, that they hung together and didn't give up. And when my eyes opened and I finally realized that, after thinking 20 years wrongly, it was quite moving to me to realize what it really meant.
Yeah.
So I hope we didn't ruin that for you, Jeff.
I can imagine. No, you didn't. I knew that was the case. But I think, likewise, long ago, when I first heard the term and heard, the little bits of Churchill saying it, because you'd hear it on snippets and here and there. It did sound like it was for the Germans. But
hey, let me ask you a favor, Jeff. Could you please put it on pause for just a minute? I'm sorry to do this to you. You can edit this out. I need to fix this camera with a piece of tape or something to make it better.
Okay.
So put it on pause. I'll be back in a second.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because with the stuff that's going on in the world these days, uh, if you watch the news at all, very anxiety, and you always wonder about the amount of anxiety that the public had to endure in Britain in those early days of the war, really all through the war, because they were so close to getting invaded. And when you think how close the close proximity of the coast of France from the coast of England, I mean, it must have been terrifying. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they put up with it. Obviously, Winston Churchill helped.
Well, the Germans probably didn't realize how close they were to completely wiping out the Air Force of Great Britain. And, there's just tons of harrowing stories about that. Their Finest Hour talks about that, but there's a lot of books, there's a lot of movies on that subject. There's, the fact that his own government wanted to negotiate terms. There's, there were so many close calls. Churchill didn't have the, influence and power that he, ended up having a few years later after helping to turn things around, and he wasn't quite as beloved by the people at that point. So he was still shoring up his own power base, is what I'm trying to say. And so, we look back now and say, well, of course Churchill did this, and of course he was able to sway people, but it wasn't so easy.
Yeah, that's something we miss out on when you read general history, is you don't get that sense of what was really going on and how hard it really was.
Bringing it back forward, just the other day, my son, my 24-year-old son, my younger son, he had his friends over, and they were just playing bags in the backyard. And sometimes they ask me to join them if they're short a player. It's just a fun thing to do. And I asked one of his friends, we got in the subject of, I don't know, history or something. I think one of the guys is going to be a history teacher at a grade school. Is his new job. But so I was asking the other friend, not the friend who's going to be the history teacher, just some basic stuff about World War I and World War II. And I was really became concerned because this friend, 24-year-old friend, went to a good high school here in the town I live in, Downers Grove, the same high school my son's went to. He's been college educated. He's going for his master's degree now. And he went to a very good, prestigious university, University of Wisconsin. Now he's going to University of Iowa for his master's. Anyway, I was concerned because he did not know anything. Oh, I know what it was. The date was June 6th. It was D-Day. We were playing bags on that day. I think that was a Saturday, wasn't it? That was a Saturday, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were over. We were playing bags. That's why. So I asked him, what was the significance of the date? He didn't know. He didn't know that it was D-Day. When we told him it was, he didn't know what D-Day meant. He didn't know what it was about. I mean, he did know like the very, very, very basics. Well, isn't that when we stormed the beaches of Normandy? But he didn't know, or of France. But he didn't know really anything else. So like he didn't know like why that was important. He didn't know why that was a big deal. He didn't know that lots of Americans died. He didn't know that General Eisenhower was in command of that effort. He didn't know it was a joint operation with allies. He didn't know about, anything.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. And I don't expect him to know all the stuff that we know as students of history that we are. I don't expect him to know all that. I don't know, but I just thought he would know more as an educated young man.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that as well. And, for myself, I never really considered myself a student of history. But, growing up, we watched TV, we watched movies. I had some history, of course, in school. You read things here and there, you see magazine articles, you read the paper, you listen to people talking, you pick up stuff. Just in listening and being exposed to a lot of different media and stuff, you just pick up stuff. And I always just picked up stuff. So I know stuff. And it used to drive my ex-wife crazy. She used to say, "How do you know all this stuff?" I say, "Well, it's just living, just existing. How did you know that word came from that word?" Mm-hmm. It's just something I picked up. But I think more and more as people are being distracted, and I hate to go on harping about this kind of thing. They're distracted by video games and social media and all these other things, so that they're not being exposed to all these different sources of real history. A lot of it's casual history from grandparents and just conversations people are having. They're not exposed to it, so they don't know anything. And it's not surprising. They don't know stuff about stuff they've never been exposed to. And it's just they've never been exposed to it. And their parents don't even expose it to them, because they've already, I don't know how old do you think this kid's parents are?
Well, they're probably about my age. They're mid-50s.
And so maybe they never, or maybe there were no grandparents around to listen to stories from, or, it's hard to know. But I do notice it. I do notice a severe lack of general knowledge.
I'm concerned because, these young folks, and these are young people that are college educated, went to a very good high school here in the town we live in. I mean, I know it is because I moved here on purpose, because it was a good school district, so that my sons could attend the schools here. So I did the research before I moved here 15 years ago. And so I guess I believe, I hope I'm not being fooled, but I believe they really did go to a good high school. It's the same one that you went to, Jeff.
Yes, it is.
So, because you used to live in this town, so it's a good school. And if they don't know that stuff, that means that other students that perhaps weren't exposed to as good of an education as these guys were are less likely to know it.
Yeah.
And again, it's not that you got to know the statistics of how many Americans died and how many beaches there were and how many landing craft the Americans put out there. That's not what I mean. I just mean that people sacrificed their lives for a cause, lots of them. And they were brave and they obeyed orders that may not have made any sense to them. And the sacrifices that people made during that time, both economically and, putting their life on the line, both, and giving up all of their tomorrows so that, we can enjoy our todays. That's what I mean. That's the important part. That's the memory and that needs to be honored. And that's what we have Memorial Day and things like that. But if you don't know the politics that were going on, or the issues that were being confronted, or the obstacles that needed to be overcome, and then things happen today in our world that are challenging or difficult or complicated, if you don't have a perspective on that stuff, I think that you can make bad decisions or you can make mistakes. That's what I'm worried about, because this is the generation that's going to be taking over soon.
Yeah.
And if they are that, unfamiliar with what's gone before them, I'm sorry, I'm concerned. I think there could be some bad decisions made.
Yeah, absolutely true. And I've got an answer for you that will, I think, set your mind at ease and really give you a lot of hope for the future.
What's that, Jeff?
I'm not going to tell you. I'll tell you in the next show.
Okay. Well, then I'll have to wait and listen.
So stay tuned.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to go on that digressing. And one more thing, I see over your shoulder again. I apologize for looking past you, but you have that book, The Army at Dawn. Do you see that right behind you?
Oh, yeah. Rick Atkinson. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a trilogy. That's The Army of Dawn is book one.
Yeah.
The second book is, what is the second one?
Yeah, good question. I never got to the second one, actually, or the third one.
Well, I'm reading the third one now.
Okay.
The third one is Guns at Last Light. Man, I'm getting mad at myself for not remembering the second one. I've read the second one, and I've read the first one. That's why I'm reading the third one. What is the name of the second one? I'll have to grab it during the break. But anyway, that's a great series. Again, I want to recommend to the audience the Rick Atkinson series, the trilogy.
The Day of Battle.
The Day of Battle. That's it. Very good. Thank you. That's the middle one. So yeah, the Army at Dawn is pretty much about the beginning of the war. It's all about the Americans and preparing for war, and the African invasion is sort of where it ends up. And then the Day of Battle, the middle book, is primarily about Italy for the most part. And now the book I'm on, the third book, is from then till the end of the war, like the invasion of Normandy, through the end. And that's but he's such a great writer. My goodness, yeah. He's just got a way with mixing in the grand sweep of history and the scope, but yet he even gets into some nitpicky details from individual soldiers' experiences. He's really got a way of touching all those buttons. It's like playing the entire piano from one end of the keyboard to the other. He's quite good.
Yeah, I will agree. I will definitely agree. Just having read the first one, An Army at Dawn, I was really impressed. And it's actually the first history book that I read when I got into gaming, which was in 2008, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I just got gaming. I don't know, just on a whim, I was on eBay and I saw Panzer Leader, and I remembered seeing the game when I was younger in high school. Never owned it, never played it. But I thought, oh, that might be a fun thing to do. So I bought Panzer Leader and Panzer Blitz and Luftwaffe.
Mm-hmm.
And I got those games, and I was just enjoying looking at them. I didn't know how to play. I had never played a war game like that. And it just got me interested in World War II history then at that point. And that book had just come out, I think, then. I remember I went to Barnes & Noble and thought, I need a good World War II history book. That was the first one I bought. So
Wow.
it was great. It was great.
Well, you could have made a worse decision than that. That's for sure.
Yeah. So then you know, whenever anybody talks about books, I always think I'm going to read that next, and I've got a gigantic stack of books I'm going to read next.
Well, you've got all these books on your shelf right behind you that you got to read.
I know, and you know what I do? I order more. I just ordered. I ordered a couple more the other day. I'm reading Crime and Punishment right now, which I have never read before. So I'm about 3/4 of the way through that, and then I'm going to read some science fiction novels for a small little book group I'm in with a couple of other guys. But this makes me want to reread Army at Dawn and then go through the next two. So we'll see. We'll see how that turns out.
Quite good. They really make you appreciate how, again, difficult those campaigns were. But it's all about the Americans, pretty much. So if you're not interested in the American point of view, then you don't want to read those 3 books. But if you are, there's not a much better series than that.
Yeah. All right.
So,
well,
we digress.
Yes, we digress, but it's a good digression. And I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. You were on last time, and we enjoyed having you and enjoyed doing the video, which was new for us. And now you're back because we wanted to talk to you about, and by the way, in case anybody noticed, Dave's not here tonight. Dave, you're not here, are you? No, Dave's not. Dave? Dave had other plans come up. Did that happen? Can other plans come up? Anyway, he got sidetracked and is doing something else. So we thought we'd press on without him and see how we do. How does all this stuff work?
I'm glad you know, because I don't.
But I'm glad you're here, Rich, because I would not be able to talk about Onslaught to Orsha, and that is our topic for tonight.
Yeah, and I think you guys did just barely scratch the surface last time I listened to your show, and you talked about the cover art of Onslaught to Orsha II, which came out fairly recently, about maybe a month or so ago.
Right. And apparently there's a lot more to it than just the cover art.
Apparently.
There's a box full of stuff. So Onslaught to Orsha II, this is a project it's a product from Bounding Fire. Thank you, Bounding Fire Productions, for sponsoring the 2 half squads. We appreciate that. And this, tell me about your involvement with this project, Rich.
Yeah, well, that's quite a story in itself to tee things up. So first of all, you might want to, or at least I'll just suggest to your listeners that at this point, we're getting close to the point where you might want to watch, because we're going to be showing some things similar to what we did last time. You don't have to. You can just listen to the audio if you want. But if you are interested in more of the detail and seeing the things we're going to be showing, this is going to be another one of those podcasts where you can look and see. And it'll be interesting to get the feedback that you get, Jeff, on the the people who give feedback on the podcast, if they like that new way of both seeing and listening or not. I'm sure it'll be a mixed signals, probably, depending upon their point of view. But
right.
Anyway, but right now we're still just going to be talking. So it's an interesting thing, because I think you guys know, and Jeff and Dave have mentioned many times on their show here on the podcast, that the kind of player that I am, I'm really into the, I want to say I'm into the rules. I'm really not into the rules. I'm really into making the rules playable, making the rules understandable, making the play experience for the player, including me, more enjoyable by understanding the rules, not being confused by them, and not being, wondering, well, gee, can I do that, or can't I do that, or
Yeah.
should I do that, or shouldn't I do that, or what are the repercussions if I don't, or if I do? To me, that's not fun. Wondering if like your opponent knows something you don't know, and then you do something and he zaps you and says, "Gotcha!" You can't do that.
And I remember early on playing ASL with a guy, and we were determined to not make any mistakes. And so, first roll of the die, it's like, can I do this? I don't know. We got out the book, we looked around, cross-reference, charts, cross-reference with more rules. An hour later, yes, you can do that. Okay, and so then that would move. Then he would have another move and be like, can we do that? Off again, we'd go to the rule book, which was actually kind of fun for a little while. But it's not conducive to playing the game.
Exactly. So I've tried to make tables and charts all along for years, like now 20 years now coming up on, I suppose, where I've tried to condense some of the more complicated rules or rules that or things that happen frequently or happen often. And so, for those who have downloaded the rules tables that you make available on the website, and I think the Texas group also makes them available, they're not many, they're sort of in a weird order. They're not really organized like chapter A and chapter B and chapter C, like maybe you might hope. They're really just sort of like how I came across them in my gaming experience. I like, oh, this thing happened, I should make a rules table for that.
Right.
So there really is no, if you're looking for some kind of sequence or order, or there isn't. But I do think I've captured a lot of great topics there of, how to do this or how to do that. And I hope that it complements, the tables and charts that MMP and others have already made. But in the context of Onslaught to Orsha, what happened is pretty typical of my experience, but in this case, it took a different turn. So I played Onslaught to Orsha 1, I don't know, a couple, 3 years ago. And I was getting into it and playing it with a couple of different guys and playing some of the scenarios. And we talked about playing the campaign game, but I never did get around to doing that. But I did play a number of the scenarios. And in preparation, though, for the campaign game that I was preparing to play with a friend, I started to make a whole bunch of charts for my own use on how to do some of the special rules that Onslaught to Orsha has. They have special aircraft rules that are different than the standard aircraft rules, and the aircraft rules, just the standard ones, are already a little tricky, and not everybody understands how to use them as they stand. But then Onslaught to Orsha added even more variety and flavor to the aircraft rules.
Yeah.
Which, if you already didn't understand, the basics, then it'd be even more difficult to understand the nuances of the new stuff. And there were different kinds of bombardments, and they have this new feature called the PT, or the mine roller tank that the Russians had, and there's special rules for that are unique to Onslaught to Orsha. And there's some special terrain things. So anyway, I made my own little rules tables and charts just to facilitate my own play, just like I often do. And time goes by, and over time I've gotten to be friends with a couple of the guys down in Texas. I've gone to their tournament a couple times. I participated in a couple of their rules discussions and things like that. And I got introduced to them and became friendly, acquainted with them, even though I live in Illinois. And I showed them these charts that I had made for Onslaught to Orsha 1. And lo and behold, they said, well, you don't realize this, but you're going to realize it. We're making Onslaught to Orsha 2 right now. This is like, maybe like a year and a half ago, this conversation. I had no idea that they were making Onslaught to Orsha 2 because I was not part of their circle. I was not part of their community. I was not part of their, circle of people they talk to about these kind of things. And I guess one of the guys really liked my Onslaught to Orsha 1 charts. And he's like, wow, we should incorporate these, or modify to be upgraded for Onslaught to Orsha 2. But conceptually, he really liked the idea of including those in the module. So I was so excited because for years, I've been making these charts for Tarawa and Red Barricades and Onslaught to Orsha, and I can't even remember all the different ones I made, and even the basic rules. I've got like 30 some charts on the basic rules, and but I always do it after the fact. Like I do it a year after, or 2 years
Sure.
after, or 10 years after
Yeah.
the module has already been released. It's way too late,
Right,
to have an impact on the game itself. It's long after the fact. So this was the first time that the guys that were designing the scenarios and designing the rules and the maps brought me into the circle on the front end. Excuse me, on the front end, to try my hand at making some charts and tables to supplement and complement the game as it comes out. So I was thrilled to have that chance, and I hope that folks really like the charts and tables, because they're unique. There's none like these that I've seen in my experience with Squad Leader and ASL that are like this. So I hope that they like the tables and charts, and I hope that they complement the rules themselves. And again, the purpose is still the purpose, making the players' playing time, that much more enjoyable and pleasant, because they can easily glance at this chart and follow along, I hope, and deploy the rules as they're written.
right.
So that's how it came to be, and I'm excited to share some of the examples.
So they got you, so they were still in the early stages of development at that time?
Well, I'd say they were past the early stage.
Okay.
They were probably, I don't know, they may not agree with this. I would say they probably were 2/3 or 3/4 already done by the time I showed up on the scene. But that was actually okay, because again, I'm not a scenario designer. I'm not really a guy to write the rules. I'm really not a map guy, so all of that hard work that those guys did is great, and that's not my strong suit. But my strong suit was, I read the rules as they had. I did make some recommendations on how to rewrite the rules or add more examples. I did, make these charts to illustrate the rules more vividly. And so the timing I came in was an appropriate point in the design of the whole module to come in. It was not too late.
Okay. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you did. And so they incorporated a bunch of those charts. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to jump in and start showing us some of the charts? Do you want to talk about should we do a little like a what's in the box to kind of show what all comes with it, and then get in?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Why don't we do a what's in the box, and I'll let you be the leader of that if you'd like to, or I can be a partner with it on you, and then I will drill into a few details after that.
And we will have to be a partner, because I don't have the whole box. I just have a few things. Dave dropped off a few things for me to have, because originally Dave was going to join us with this. So we're going to have to do a truncated what's in the box, but you've got everything that's in the box. So whatever I'm missing, you can fill in with.
Yeah, that's fine. So why don't you share your screen, or share whatever you want to share first, and I can go in a second.
Well, first of all, we're just going to talk about what comes in the box. So besides the box itself, which we talked about last time with the great artwork, comes with three large, these are the usual campaign size or historical module size maps. I don't know if you can see that. So 3 this size, right? I just have 2. I got gypped.
Yeah, I believe there are 3. They're not all exactly the same size, but they're meant to all go together, is my understanding.
Okay. All right.
Again, I'm not an expert on this, but I will say they're beautiful. The artwork is just, terrific.
Yeah, very high quality paper.
It's the larger size hexes, which I really like.
Yeah.
It's kind of thick cardboard-ish material, so it's pretty durable, it seems. I don't know. Anyway, I like it a lot.
Yeah, and in fact, let's see. I've got 2 of them. Just see.
I also like the way, open up the map that you're showing there, Jeff. You'll see the little red dots that have numbers by them.
Yeah.
Those are identifying the victory point locations that are important in the campaign game or in some of the scenarios. So I just like that. I like the way they make it easy on the user or on the player to quickly identify. Sometimes when you read an SSR, it'll say, hex U10 is worth 10 points and hex X11 is worth 10 points or whatever. This just very quickly lets you find those things. with the red, easily identifiable numbers. I just think that's cool.
Brilliant. That right there makes the whole thing worth it. Let me just look at this next map, and you can see this nice, I love the railroad track going through the center of the map. So this one is, yeah, continuation. Trying to see. So which map do you have that I don't have?
Oh, I'm not sure, Jeff, but there are 3 of them. I got 3 paper or cardboard maps. It says on the back, you know what it says on the back where it tells
That's what I
us
was
the
looking for.
things that are included? It says there's 2 22-inch by 27-inch maps, HASL, and 1 28 by 27 map.
Okay.
So there's 3 of these HASL maps. 2 of them are the same size, and 1 is a little bit bigger.
Okay. Well, in any event, and the terrain in this is all pretty similar across the map. So there's lots of, first of all, you'll notice lots of shell holes. Probably more than that, you'll notice the train that goes through, the train track that goes through the entire map. Both
Yeah,
maps.
that train track is super important too if you ever end up playing some of the bigger scenarios or campaign game, because that is as I recall, that's a half-level obstacle. It's not a ground level train. It's what do you call the one that's a half level high? It's embanked train, I think they call it, EM.
Yeah, right.
And it's a half level, so it's kind of like almost like a wall going across. So like units on one side of the train track really can't see units on the other side, unless they're like right adjacent to the train track. So it kind of breaks up the map in an interesting way.
And I'm kind of remembering this now. Did you play Orsha scenario with Dennis Donovan?
Yes, he and I played the giant scenario.
Okay.
It's called One Bloody Morning. It's one of the big giant scenarios that uses virtually the whole map. And he and I played it twice. We switched sides, and we played it once at Aslock, and then another time in Texas, switching sides. And we met each other because he lives in California. I live here in Illinois, so we only can meet when we got together at these tournaments. And yeah, we played it twice. And when you mentioned the railroad, I just got to laugh. I know we talked about this on your program, but there was one occasion when he was the German, and he had this very powerful 88, millimeter gun that's supposed to take out a lot of Russian tanks.
I'm remembering this.
And he tried recovering it with 2 crews. And I don't remember all the data now. I think we did talk about it on your podcast. I'm sure we did.
We did.
But he had 6 failures in a row of recovering the gun. Because I think I broke the crew and it routed. And then it rallied back, but it was not in the hex. I'm just trying to remember now. Dennis, I'm sure, remembers maybe even more vividly than me. And then he had another crew come to take its place because it was very important for him to get this gun going. Now, some of the failed attempts were under the CX modifier. So you got to add 1 on a recovery roll when you're CX, which means a 5 or a 6, you won't recover it. But 4, as I recall, 4 of the 6 recovery attempts, all he needed was a 5 or less, with one die.
Yeah.
And he failed 6 in a row, and just unbelievable. And what to add insult to injury, we were playing with the rule. I think we talked about this on that show. I forget which episode that was. It was a couple years ago. We were playing with the rule that we called it passing the cup. We have this little red Yahtzee cup. That's a little plastic cup that's like the size of your fist. And if you roll a bad roll, you're allowed to pass the cup to the other guy and then re-roll that bad roll.
Right.
But the rule that we have for that is it has to be a 2 dice sum that you're re-rolling, like on the IFT or something like that, or a morale check or something. You can't do it for single die things.
Okay.
It's made for 2 dice sums.
Made for 2 dice. Okay.
So it's usually on the IFT. If you roll a 12 when you break a gun or something,
yeah.
Or if you get a morale check 12 when you kill a 10 -2 leader, you would re-roll that if you had the cup. But then you got to pass the cup to the other guy, and then he's got the cup, and then he has that opportunity to re-roll something. But anyway,
or just hang on to the cup,
or just hold on to it and not let your opponent have it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we were playing with that rule, but but because he was doing single die rolls, he had the cup, but he couldn't use it for that purpose. So frankly, I felt sorry for poor Dennis. That was really just an unbelievable. And I think we calculated the odds on your program, and it was I don't remember, but you have to listen to that episode. But it was thousands and thousands to one that could happen.
I remember
Anyway, so
that. And
yeah,
I
whenever I
remember
see the railroad track, I think about that.
how disappointing that is when you spend all that time preparing and then you meet somebody that you're not going to see again for another year. And then that happens.
Yes, it was sad. But I've also shared with you some of my gut-wrenching, heartbreaking stories that have happened to me against other opponents that have been just so sad I could cry.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways.
Yeah. Also comes with this, we get 2 of the standard geomorphic boards. And these don't enter into the campaign game, I wouldn't think, do they? Or these are just for playing scenarios using the Orsha.
Yeah, some of the scenarios use regular boards, and some of the scenarios use the HASL boards. It depends. Okay. There's quite a big pack of scenarios, and these are those double wide boards that BFP makes. The DW that stands for double wide. So there's
these are
actually there's 4 of them. There's 4 double wides: 8A, 8B, and 9A and 9B, I believe, in this module. And they're beautiful. They're just really pretty. I don't know. I just like the way BFP does their work. It's just really high quality.
Yeah. And that is all I have, other than the charts. So what else?
Well, I'll talk about what I have then. I'll just show one as an example here. I'll just show it up on the screen like this. There's 32 scenarios.
Wow.
I'm not going to go all through all 32. You'll be glad to know.
Yeah.
But some are big, some are small, some are on the standard maps, some are on the historical maps. That's a nice mix. Some are. I will talk about that OtO 8, Another Bloody Morning. That's the big one that I played with Dennis Donovan that I recommend very highly. It's a lot of fun, but it does take a lot of time, and you got to prepare for that one. So I will highlight that one as a fun one, but a big one. There's also a bunch of counters. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll be very brief, but there's some special mine roller counters that you need for the the mine roller rules, which we'll talk about here in a minute.
Yeah, cool.
There's a whole bunch of Russian mine roller tanks that you'll need for that special situation. One counter I really like. I'm going to show it. I don't know. Other people might not be that excited about this, but I am. Is the burning wreck counter? Do you see the burning wreck? See the red ones?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
And I love those counters. I'm going to cut those out and just use them in my normal counter mix because I get so tired of having to find a flame to put on a wreck, and then it's two counters high when it could just be one if you had one of these. Plus, sometimes when you get a wreck, it's worth victory points. And if you take the vehicle counter off the board to put it in the victory point pile to keep track, then obviously you've taken it off the board where it still would probably have an effect. So if you have a burning wreck and it's a burning wreck, you can actually put this burning wreck counter there, and you can put the counter itself in that victory point pile if necessary.
Yeah.
So I like that. I'm going to use those. So with that, maybe I'll dive a little bit into the rules and the rules tables that I tried to make, or charts for the module, and just give people a taste and a flavor if they haven't bought the module yet themselves.
Before you do that, let me just ask you about Another Bloody Morning, because this is offered, as you said, in this scenario pack, obviously. Is it going to play any different, you think, this with Onslaught to Orsha II than it did in 1? Like, why did they make this? Why did they remake this? Did they fix things that were broken?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, that's okay.
Again, I did not design the scenarios. I don't know if Another Bloody Morning is exactly the same as it was in Onslaught to Orsha 1. I apologize. I don't know.
Okay.
It might be exactly the same. They might have altered it. I know that the rules of Onslaught to Orsha 2 are not that much different than the rules of Onslaught to Orsha 1.
Yeah.
Not many changes. The main thing, they just added a whole bunch more aircraft, both to the German side and to the Russian side, and gave a whole lot more capabilities to the different kinds of aircraft, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And that's the main thing that they added. But that wouldn't affect that particular scenario, because that particular scenario, has a certain amount of Russian and German aircraft already.
Yeah.
that I don't think has changed from, the first version. So,
Okay.
but I really don't know. I really don't know if they modified the scenario or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to ask those guys next time I talk to them. So, yes.
Yeah.
So on we go.
On we go. So let's see. I think I will share my screen. That'll be a little easier than just flipping stuff up on the
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah. Good.
So I'm going to do that. All right. So now it's just a picture of you. Not that you're not handsome, Jeff, but I'm going to show something else now.
It's my favorite thing.
All right. So first, I guess I will show the special aircraft rules just in general. I'm not going to go through all these pages, but I'll show you a few. So again, the vast majority of these rules were written by the other BFP folks, not me. But I did help with, kind of rewording some things. I did help with, showing and illustrating a number of examples, or adding to the examples, or maybe rewording some of the examples to make them more clear and more vivid. And that's one thing I really love about the BFP products. They just really show a lot of examples. So you see here, there's example of play 1 here that I'm showing on the screen. And here's example of play 2 and another example. And they show all the different Russian aircraft and all the different features they have, and when the unit becomes available, and it's rate of fire and doesn't have rockets or bombs and this, that, and the other.
Wow.
And
that is cool.
But you can see why these were very conducive to making a nice chart and table to summarize and gather these facts and figures together, which I'll show you in a second.
Hey, Rich, you see the 2 half squads emblem that's in the upper right hand?
I do.
Yeah, I think if you click on the X, that'll go away.
Okay.
Without hanging up. Okay, great.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm glad I didn't hang up.
Yeah.
So again, there's all these rules with rockets and special ammunition and cannons and cluster bombs.
Cluster bombs. What's a cluster bomb?
Well, I think it's both against infantry and tanks. And again, that's when it gets confusing. So when you think about it, there's all these different options.
Yeah.
There is, when the aircraft go against infantry, there's when the aircraft go against AFEs. There's the point attack and the strafing run, options that you have that are the standard rules. But when you do all that math of this times this times this, there's like so many combinations that your head starts to spin and you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So again, that's why I put these charts together, which we'll show in a minute, to try to summarize this stuff. But these examples are great. Like one thing I did emphasize, like you can see here in this Sturmovik example, play 1, making a rocket point attack. Again, I did maybe 10% of this work. The other guys did the vast majority. But I did show in the example in bold, yes, the base is 7, but here's why the base is 7. It's this plus this minus that.
Right.
I really tried to show people, I didn't just tell you it's 7. I tried to, illustrate, that there's a reason why it's 7, because you add these things.
I'm really glad you did that, because I can't. Oh, and by the way, could you click the plus sign at the top of your PDF reader there to zoom us in a little bit? Yeah, one more.
One more? Okay.
Yeah, one more. Great. Oh, yeah, that's great.
How's that?
Oh, yeah, and I can't, I was going to say, I can't tell you how many times I'll look at an example, like in the rule book, and I'll see what their determination, if this happens, then it's that many pluses or minuses, but they don't do what you did. They don't break it out and show you why. And a lot of times I'll think, I can't figure out how they came to that number. So this is really instructive. It's very helpful.
So again, I don't want to take too much credit here myself, but I was involved in helping them to put these examples together.
Yeah.
And even more so, I really try to emphasize the, here's where the numbers come from in this example. And then you notice this last sentence here. Should you get this hit, should you roll this 7 in this case, or less, then any hit you have, how will you resolve it? Well, it's an area attack, so you're going to resolve it using the indirect fire principles, like as if it were like OBA or a mortar or something like that, because it was an area, type attack.
Right. Right.
And then you get the -1 die roll modifier for aerial advantage. So I just try to make it super obvious, like, here's how you hit, here's how you resolve it, and this is just in the rules themselves. We haven't gotten to the tables yet. But I hope that people really enjoy looking at these examples, and they should answer just about any question you have. There's an example play 2 with a rocket strafing run. And again, you can see in bold over here on the left the examples and the illustration of the modifiers of, because oftentimes it's hard to say, well, gee, should I do a vehicle target type, or should I do a point attack, or a strafing run, or whatever. Your head spins. You don't know which one to do. Is this one better against infantry, or is this one better against tanks? I don't know. Should I do area target type? And these examples show you, well, there's advantages and disadvantages to doing everything, but at least allows you to make an informed decision. Go ahead.
I did a quick read through on just a few of these examples, and I found them so useful. I thought, I would almost, for myself, benefit from reading the examples first and then going back and reading the rules, because the rules will make more sense because I've got some context. I've already seen some context for how they apply.
Good point, Jeff. Thanks. Yeah. I'm glad you said it, because that's exactly how I was hoping people would think about it, is a complement to the rules. Here in this example, excuse me, example number 4, you see here the base 7, comes as shown, but then they go on to go through the example and the 2 kill number, which includes the +1 rear and the +2 open top aerial advantage, just to remind people that those things are in play. The half-track's aerial armor factor is 0. And it talks about, what happens to the infantry. Anyway, it's just showing you what happens in real life in this example 4.
Yeah.
So it's just lots of examples. Example 5. Anyway, I just wanted to show you that.
Yeah, really good. Really good.
So I'll minimize that, and then I'll show you one more chart, or maybe more than one more. So let's talk about the aircraft. This is one of the charts that are in the one of the cardboard, I'm not sure what they're called, chapter dividers. Is that the official word?
Yeah, right. And you could zoom in on that too, so it's just,
yes, I will.
You could. That'd be great.
How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so what I tried to do was I tried to combine, excuse me, I actually got into a little bit of a disagreement with a couple of the guys on this, and I think we reached a happy compromise. But I wanted to not just illustrate the Onslaught to Orsha stuff. You can see why this is debatable. I also wanted to illustrate how you do ordinary, regular fighter bomber stuff that already exists in the base game. And then, in my opinion, I argued, or I advocated that, it'll make more sense to show everything with respect to ground support, or and then then add on the new Onslaught to Orsha stuff. So I kind of wanted to start with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Rather than just going straight to the Onslaught, because this is an Onslaught, but the counter argument is, well, this is an Onslaught to Orsha module. It's not a standard chart for other things. So you could argue both points, but I think we reached a happy compromise. So, like, for example, on this chart, you see all these Russian ground support, and I call it standard ground support rules. So I'm combining the Onslaught to Orsha stuff with the rules like of E 7.4, which is the majority of the rules on ordinary, aircraft rules, for strafing runs and point attacks and so on. So, here I tried to color code it a little bit. Here's like number 1 is machine guns or bombs, which could be the anti-tank cluster bomb. And there's some footnotes describing all that stuff. I'll call that normal, the normal situation. But sometimes you have rockets, which I made in red. Sometimes you have these cannons, which I made in blue. And, you can see that there's many different ways to handle these aircraft and the different options you have available. Again, looking at the table, you see the different aircraft. You see what their machine gun firepower is. You see what their to kill number is when they go against an armored target. You see what their bomb size is in millimeters, but you also see the to kill number of that bomb in brackets. See that?
Yeah.
If they have rockets, it shows you what the millimeters are and what the RAN number is, which we'll get into what the RAN is. Then if they have a cannon or not, again, trying to color code a little bit, red for rocket, blue for cannon. Some of them have cannons, and you can see a little footnote there of what the to-kill number is of that cannon, should it go against an AFE. On the German side, I'll scroll over. We did include the basic 39 dive bomber Stuka that's in the ordinary game, and the 42 dive bomber Stuka, which is also in the ordinary game, and then the other ones that are now in Onslaught Orsha, which are a little bit different and have more features. So, so this was the happy compromise we reached between the BFP guys and myself as we discussed. Linking, if you want to use the word linking, the existing ground support rules and equipment with the new Onslaught Orsha stuff.
Yeah, great.
So I'm not going to go through every single example, but let me go through maybe one or two.
Sure.
So, just using the standard rules here. So now we're in the Russian section here. We're in the Russian section on the left. And it's saying, though, this is standard machine gun or bomb attack procedures. There's this footnote A and there's this footnote 1. Now, footnote 1 tells you that the German fighter bombers also follow those same procedures. But of course, they would ignore the ATCB options because the Germans didn't have those.
Okay.
All right, so it's telling you on footnote 1 that you would use that for both. So you could see that if you're doing a strafing run, that's what this is. You see strafing run that I'm highlighting on the screen. It tells you, just step by step, this is what you do. You move to an attack position 4 hexes from the target. You make a sighting task check, and now you're subject to light anti-aircraft fire. Notice that you're subject to light anti-aircraft fire before you even do an attack.
Yeah.
All right, because there's some attacks that are coming up later on where you can attack first before being subject to light anti-aircraft fire.
In the point attacks?
And then over here on the right, point attack, it tells you the steps.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah.
You notice how, sometimes the range changes. Here you got the 0 to 6. And you had 7 to 12 in the previous attack because, you use aerial range, which doubles the distance.
Right.
And so that's pretty important. Let's see, what else do I want to show?
And those are both, the example covers a point attack that is hitting 2 targets, one that's at 7 and then the other's at 0 to 6. And you can see the difference in the two in the example.
It's reminding you that it's a little bit easier to hit on the second attack.
Yeah.
Because you're a little bit closer.
Right.
Let's see, I also want to show something that's important. Let me see if I can find it. Well,
Wow.
if I see it later, I'll point it out. But anyway, so that's an example of the strafing run, of the point attack, of the standard. That's this black number 1. But if you're going to use rockets, let's talk about rockets. So I think that's on the next page. Yes. So here is the rockets.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you want to do a strafing run with the rockets, you do it again. I'm not going to go through every single step, but you can see, what you do. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. If you're going to do a point attack with the rockets, then you do, that section. Step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yeah. Nice.
And it tells you if you're using area target type or infantry target type, or if you have to use one or the other. It tells you exactly what you need to do and what your options are. Here's the Russian cannon. Again, strafing run, point attack. So again, I'm not going to go through every single little thing because it would take too long, but the rules, I think, come to life a little bit more readily when you see the flowcharts.
Oh, absolutely.
Excuse me. There was one thing I wanted to show that I'm not seeing right now. Let me make it a little smaller, Jeff, if you'll let me.
Sure.
I thought maybe they left that off. Huh. There was a part that I had that maybe didn't get onto this particular version, where I describe the things that could be included in light anti-aircraft fire, because that's often a point of confusion of what you can include in light anti-aircraft fire.
For instance, give me a for instance.
Okay, like for example, excuse me, like any like IFE, infantry fire equivalent, can be used if the gun is in anti-aircraft mode. Anti-aircraft guns that are on AFEs can be used. Heavy machine guns can be used, but you can't use any leadership modification on them. There's special rules like that.
Okay.
But you can't use inherent firepower. You can't use light machine guns or medium machine guns. And I thought that we summarized that somewhere, but forgive me, I'm not seeing it right now.
That's on the point attacks?
Well, that's when you're using light anti-aircraft fire against the aircraft.
Okay.
Because you see here, in many of the steps, like for example here, I'm showing on the screen, you're subject to light anti-aircraft fire. I'll blow it up again. That happens a lot where you're subject to light anti-aircraft fire. So that's the thing that the defenders are trying to use against the aircraft.
Right, okay.
And if they roll low enough, they can actually, cause the plane to veer off or even be destroyed if they roll really low. So anyway, these are just examples and step by step that hopefully make the rules themselves a little bit more easily understandable. And also we included the basic rules of ground support in these flowcharts. So even if my point is, if you're not playing Onslaught to Orsha, you're playing just some other scenario that has aircraft in it or ground support in it, you could use these charts.
I think that's terrific.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So, because the data is here to use it. So I'll leave it at that, but that's probably the most exciting and interesting thing about the Onslaught to Orsha II module is all the cool stuff you can do with aircraft.
Yeah, that is really cool.
And just like everything with ASL, it's very exciting and fun to plan and think about it and use the new cool stuff. But if you roll too high, it's not going to work. So roll
Is
low.
that how that works?
Can you imagine that? You do all that preparation time and you follow all the charts and you roll a 10 and you miss.
It's happened many times. Yep.
So roll low and you'll have more fun.
Yeah. Well, that charts, I mean, these are jam-packed with information. I would say, you're going to need your reading glasses.
Yeah, that is one. Again, we did get into a debate about that too, just to share a little bit. I don't want to get into too much of that, behind the scenes stuff. But
yeah,
we debated whether we should include bigger fonts and maybe have it expand. It would take extra cardboard, dividers to fit it all. And this is a decision that was made. It's a reasonable decision. We did the best we could. It's kind of an experiment. Again, this has never really been done before, to my knowledge, of this much hands-on, step-by-step instruction of how to deploy these, rules. I've not seen that done in an ASL module before. So it's kind of an experiment. So if people like it, they should say something, or if they have suggestions to make it better, they should also, let people know. Let me know, because I might be helping in the future too.
Yeah.
Unless they fire me after doing this podcast, we'll see. Hopefully not. The other thing I want to show is the bombardment rules. So there's special bombardment rules in Onslaught to Orsha. You can see these on the right. Let me blow it up a bit. Let me blow it up and scoot over. And again, I'm not going to go through every single row here, but I've often been confused by bombardment rules when I've used them in the past in other scenarios and other campaign games and things like that. And I just tried to make it really, really simple. Like, what is the morale level and what are the effects and what happens if you fail the morale check? Like what happens to the people, what happens to the terrain, which modifiers count, which ones don't. I just try to make it really, really simple in a simple table. So this, shows you all that of what happens to the infantry, what happens to the tanks or the AFEs, what happens to the stone building or the pillbox or what have you. And so I just try to summarize it all in little tables.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, moving on. I'm going to make it small again for a second.
Wow. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, one thing I do want to show, just a second here, I might back up to the airplanes for a minute. Yeah, notice here, I'm going to blow it up here. I'll blow it up again. I do want to point something out. This is not a mistake. Like here is the ordinary German Stuka point attack. It's the ordinary German Stuka attack, and it's also the new. It's two things at once. It's the normal German Stuka attack, and it's also the new 43A dive bomber Stuka that's in Onslaught Orsha. It's both things at the same time.
Yeah.
And notice here, you move to your attack position 1 hex distant because it's a point attack. You make a SETI task check. And now you do your first attack. You're not subject to light anti-aircraft fire here. Not yet. Like over here on the left, you're subject to the anti-aircraft fire first. Then you make your attack. So the point is, here on the left-hand side here, on the strafing run, excuse me again, you could end up being shot at by a lot of anti-aircraft fire. And if one of those die rolls is low, it could basically foil your whole aircraft attack.
Yeah.
Because if they get a low roll and they have a lot of anti-aircraft fire, one of them might affect the aircraft and even destroy it before you even get a chance to attack. Here, the Stuka gets to attack first. Look at that. Furthermore, and here's a rule that's been very confusing for a lot of people for a long time, it says that the infantry in the target hex are pinned. Even if the result is nothing, they still are pinned. But if they are concealed, if the target is concealed, they don't lose concealment, if only due to this particular pin. Because for a long time, I know a lot of people played it, well, you're pinned, and so you lose concealment. Which normally would be the case. If you're pinned, you lose concealment in a normal situation. But in this case, if the only reason why you're losing concealment is because you're forced to be pinned because of the Stuka attack, you don't. So I guess in that case, you would not be pinned. Or I guess you're pinned and concealed.
Pinned and concealed, right. Yeah.
Which would be a strange. Then you're subject to light attack. So that's the advantage of doing the point attack with the Stuka. It's one of the advantages. You get to attack first before you get attacked. And the Russians don't have any planes like that. Only the Germans have this particular couple of Stukas that can do that.
Okay.
So that's something I wanted to demonstrate.
Very cool.
All right, so moving back, so I bounced around a little bit. So I did bombardment, did that. Now this part I had nothing to do with, so I don't take any credit for this. This is very similar to what was in Onslaught Orsha 1. It's just sort of a summary of some of the special rules and the special terrain features. I don't claim anything special of affecting these. These were already there, before I joined the guys. It's almost identical to what they had in the Onslaught Orsha 1 rules. They're modified maybe a tiny bit, a little more clarity. But then moving on to stuff I did help with. So on the left, there are special rules in the rules about terrain types. There's this special orchard shell hole rule. There's we talked about the railroad a few minutes ago. And again, just to make things simple, and it's not complicated, but again, it's hard to remember all this stuff when you're actually playing the game. I just made a little chart, little table of how many movement factors it takes to go into these special terrain features. It's hard to know sometimes. If you're infantry, if you're a tracked vehicle, if you're a non-tracked vehicle, it's just hard to know. And if you got to roll for bog or not, and if so, what are the bog modifiers? This is just a handy dandy. How many movement points or movement factors does it take? Nothing complicated here, but it just summarizes it all in one spot. If you're going to play on the paper map with the special terrain, it's very easy to just look at this chart and you can tell what you're doing. Rather than, you're moving your tank and you want to cross the railroad track.
Yeah.
And then you're flipping back into chapter B.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? Hello? Anyway, there's also machine gun cupolas in Onslaught Orsha. Those are also in the regular rules, but the Onslaught Orsha ones are a tiny bit different. And so, again, nothing real fancy here, but I just sort of summarized it like, you treat it like this, and this is the hexes it can set up in.
Yeah.
And it can create fire lanes, which is different than, I think, machine gun cupolas in the normal rules. And all of these things are not applicable to the machine gun cupola. Anyway, it's just basically explaining everything that could possibly happen in a quick little paragraph. The slope rules. Now, I myself have been frustrated by the slope rules, and there's nothing different about the Onslaught to Orsha slope rules. They're very similar to the slope rules that already exist in Chapter P. But this was my way of just, it's kind of summarizing them.
Thank goodness.
And, it's just, I always struggled with, well, is it a down slope? Is it an up slope? What do those hash marks mean?
Yeah.
And I tried to explain it in words. I tried to, make it easy to understand, to refresh people's memory if they haven't do slopes, because there are a lot of slopes in Onslaught to Orsha that are very important, and you got to know the slopes reasonably well to enjoy using the historical map. And so line of sight across slopes, fire lanes across slopes, whatever. I'm not going to get into it now, but I tried to grab the most important points to make the slope rules a little bit more manageable and understandable. And then finally, I guess the last thing that I spent a lot of time on were these new mine roller tanks. So it starts here in the lower left-hand corner. Let me blow this up. It starts here in the lower left-hand corner, and then it goes on, to the right-hand side of this chapter divider. And so again, I just tried to grab, like how do you even move these things? Why are they different? And changing its vehicle covered arc is a little bit different.
Right.
And they cannot go into buildings or rubble or woods, the way normal tanks can. And anyway, I just summarized it all. I'm not going to.
Yeah, they don't get vehicle bypass. They don't get road rate. Yeah, it's all here. Right. No OVR, no ES, no excessive speed breakdown. Yeah.
Right. I'm just trying to grab all the things that could come up. Oh, gee, I want an ESP. Well, you can't. Oh, I want to use 1/2 movement point later. You can't. I want to overrun the infantry. You can't.
Yeah.
Next, here's how you move. Very, very simple, step by step. How do you move? Because the purpose of it is to find mines.
Yeah.
And so, okay, well, you declare that you're going to move it, and you declare how many movement points you're going to expend as you enter that hex. It might only cost 1 movement point to enter an open ground hex, but you have to declare I'm spending 1 movement point, or I'm spending half my movement points. You have to say it.
Okay.
And then the opponent will then say, okay, yeah, you just found some mines. And then if mines are found, you go to step 3. If not, you go back to step 1, and you announce how many movement points you're going to expend to go to the next hex.
That's great.
But if there are mines, it tells you what to do. The PT tank is not attacked by the mines, but it must button up and it must remain in motion.
And it spends the rest of its movement points right there.
Yes, and you place a partial trail break.
Yeah.
Then there's a clearance diagonal modifier that's to be determined, and that'll be affected by how many movement points that you declared. The more movement points you declared, the better the modifier will be. And it tells you, what those mods are based on, how many movement points you expended. I guess it's less than half, greater than or equal to half, or all are the 3 possibilities. And then it tells you that you're not going to clear the mines now. You have to wait to the close combat phase.
Right.
So
to the end of the close combat phase, right?
That's right. So
it's done after all close combat is done.
Exactly. So the tank, the AFV, could be destroyed or bogged or immobilized or stunned or whatever. In the meantime, during defensive fire phase, before you even get to the close combat phase.
Yeah. Okay.
But assuming none of those things happen and you're still there, then you roll and you apply these modifiers. And, if you roll low enough that you can place a trail break, as it says, or it might damage the mine roller, or the tank itself might get destroyed based on the results here. It's basically just summarizing the rules in a step-by-step, format.
Yeah.
But then they had special rules about how you could move infantry and the PT tank combined. So it's armored assault, yes, and the armored assault rules, are pretty well understood, but it's a little different when you're armored assaulting with a PT tank. And it tells you, who's attacked and how you're attacked. Is the infantry attacked? And yes, they are, with half firepower. And, it tells you what to do with, riders, with infantry on foot, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, great.
There's
so
also,
you're meaning if if the PT tank detonates a mine, what happens to the guys that are assault moving with it? That's what you're talking about?
Right. Yeah, it says
Yeah,
infantry
okay.
using armored assault with the PT
Yeah.
tank that enters an AP minefield hex or attack with half fire.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
With no TEM. I think the regular rules say that you'd be attacked with full firepower if you were with like a normal AFE.
Right.
But with this type of a tank, at least it cuts it in half.
Okay.
And it also tells you no TEM, so 0 TEM. Then you'll make a minefield clearance roll in the close combat phase, just like you normally would, with the other rules. The infantry, let's see. Yeah, so the infantry is not helping you with that. And riders on the tank are affected by mines, per that rule, for that. So, like if the tank gets blown up, I think that riders are attacked collaterally or something like that. But it's at least telling you where to go if that happens, to read the rules. Wire is an important thing too. There's tons of wire in Onslaught to Orsha, and these PT tanks are a little bit better at removing wire. I think you know, Jeff, that normally when you roll for bog with a regular fully tracked AFE, if you get a 1 on the color die roll, the wire is removed. Well, with PT tanks, it's a little bit better. If the color die roll is 1 or 2, the wire is removed.
Okay.
However, there's a +5 modifier on the bog die roll because you got +2 for the wire, +1 special PT bog rule that's in there, and these AFEs are all high ground pressure, which is another +2, so that's +5 altogether. Notice again, we're showing the reader where the +5 comes from. So it's possible when you think about it, and I tried to make this point here in the way this is described, it's possible that if you get a 6 on the white die roll, and you get let's say a 2 on the color die roll, that's 8, right?
Yeah.
And then you add 5, that's 13. It's possible that you would get a bog, but you would also clear the wire, right?
Oh, okay.
In that situation, I guess you could also have a 5 on the white die roll and a 2 on the color die roll and add 5, and that's 12. Okay, so what this is telling you is you don't bog, even though you might have otherwise, if the color die roll is less than or equal to 2, even if.
Yeah.
So this is telling you what happened, because when those situations happen that nobody talks about,
Yeah.
and then you don't know what to do.
Right.
Here's what you do. So we made it clear that if that happened, because that's what's going to happen. If we didn't put this there, if we didn't put that in there, then that's what would happen to everybody.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to go through all this now, but here's when you're firing versus a PT tank, because the mine roller that's in front, kind of protects the AFE a little bit, and you can read, how that works. If you're firing from the PT tank, the mine roller kind of gets in your way, and it has certain effects to stop you or to prevent you from doing certain things. It's not that bad, but there are some little nuances there. So anyway, I tried to summarize all the PT rollers, PT tank mine roller rules in the little sections here.
Nice.
So anyway, that's what we did. I want to commend the BFE guys for giving me a chance to contribute and the way I did, and I hope that the people who buy the module are happy with it and like it, and enjoy using the new tools, the new toys, the mine rollers, the new aircraft, the new rockets, the cannons, the cluster bombs. I hope that the flowcharts help in the use of those things, and yeah, we'll see. I'm still waiting for a little bit of feedback.
I got to think that it's going to make a huge difference for playability of the thing, especially if you have a brain like mine, where you're reading through the rules and trying to absorb it all, and it just doesn't sink in. But here it's all just laid out. You just follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just right down the row for your situation. That makes it so much easier.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. Yeah, well done, Rich. That's nice. Hey, where do I find your name? Is it in here somewhere?
Well, yeah, I think on the back they show player aids. They show my name next to the player aids.
Okay, you're immortal.
Well, I don't know about that, but I am proud of the work that I did do to help. And I look forward to working with these guys again. I hope that I can work with them again on another module that they might be working on.
Yeah, I don't have any pull over there, but do it, guys, do it.
Those are some pretty snazzy glasses you had on there, Jeff.
Aren't those great?
Those make you look very sophisticated and intelligent.
It's all a sham.
Look
Or
at
is it
that.
a scam? It's a scam or a sham.
Look at that. Wow. I don't want to play squad leader against you. I'll lose for sure.
Well, I'll be using the Spilky charts, and I will say, I don't know if anybody doesn't use them, but you should be using them. If you go to the Two Half Squads website and click on the quick access tab right at the top, it says Rich Spilky's ASL charts. You can download the latest version of the charts in PDF. It's about 31 tables now, I think.
I think
like
they're
that.
numbered like 1 through 31 or 32, but
Yeah.
a lot of them have an A and a B and a C.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's more than 31. It's, I don't know what it is. It's perhaps pushing 40.
And you've got more in the works too, right?
Yeah, I do. I always have 1 or 2 I'm sort of working on in the background or thinking about, or I'll play a game and I'm like, that never happened before.
Yeah.
And I'll think about perhaps putting a chart together, but that's certainly slowed down because, now I have experienced, not everything. How can you experience everything? But I've experienced, a great deal of what the game has to offer by this point. I've made, quite a number of charts that captured quite a few of the things that I think happen reasonably often, but, never say never. There's always more.
Yeah. 38 pages is what you've got so far.
Ah,
30 different charts on 38 pages.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Makes sense.
Everybody should have those with them whenever they're playing because they're really a big help. And of course, I should keep them handy when I'm doing the show to keep me from making so many mistakes.
Well,
and Dave
hopefully
and I
they will help
agreed.
you.
Dave and I agreed going forward before each show, we would make sure we are not wearing pants and that we have our Spilky charts out.
Well, I'm not sure which of those 2 things is more important, but I'll let you experiment and see.
All right. Well, we're at about time's up for this show. Actually, we've gone a little bit long, but it was such good material. Do we have any more to cover for Onslaught to Orsha for a future show? Or we pretty much covered it, I guess, right?
Well, I just want to encourage people to go to the BFP website and order it because I know they're one of your sponsors, but I also obviously am biased because, I want to support those guys. And again, they were good enough to let me help them. So
I'm looking forward to playing one of these scenarios. So I have to help you get your vassal going, or maybe I can get Dave to play one of these with me. Anyway.
I'd wonder, I don't want to push on the spot. I'm not a vassal guy myself, but I know I need to get there eventually. But I know you have had a couple programs talking about vassal. Do you know if the Onslaught to Orsha material is
that's a good question.
In vassal? Do you know? I don't.
It may not be yet. I would have to look through the downloads, and I don't want to do that right at the moment.
Yeah,
so,
one of the listeners probably will comment on that if they know.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Jeff. It was fun.
Thanks, Rich. It's always a pleasure to see you. I wish we could get together and play face to face, but barring that, maybe we could work out something else in the near future. And I'm glad you're safe and everybody's healthy there.
Yes, my family is doing well, and I trust yours is too.
We are, and we're staying. Where's my mask? I wear it to bed. We're being very safe over here.
Wow, you sure are.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being with us, and hope to see you again soon.
Well, I get to participate in the sign-off.
You do.
I'm not sure what it's called. The sign-off statement, phrase. What's it called?
Yes. Yeah. Our I don't know what we call it, but remember to roll low
and rally well.
But not when you're playing
us.
Us.
You or me.
That's right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you later. Bye.